Hey cast iron fans, today I'm going to share with you 4 of my favorite modern day cast iron skillets. These skillets are modern day because the manufacturers have incorporated design features and manufacturing techniques to cause things like thinner walls, which makes the pan very light, cool touch handles, which are a pleasure to use, different surfaces like this polished surface, or this cast surface, which is extremely smooth. So you be the judge of if these features make your cooking experience more enjoyable. These pans are significantly more expensive than your typical lodge skillet of the same size. So keep that in mind. Ultimately, you decide. I hope this video helps. If you're thinking about any of these, this video will surely give you a comparison at the very minimum to make a decision on maybe which one you would like to start with. So we are going to start with the field skillet. This is the lightest of all of these pans of this same size. Very, very lightweight. And it doesn't hold heat as well as the heavier ones due to that lightweight. However, I have to admit that I've never really had a problem with uneven heating. If I'm going to sear a steak, I would probably use this pan, which is heavier. However, for vegetables, for potatoes, there's just lots of foods that I enjoy cooking in this pan. The thing I like the best about this pan is how short the handle is. Now there's a drawback there because it will get hot. They've cut a groove in the back of it, which helps it to keep cool during normal meals. But if you're cooking for a longer period of time, or of course if you're putting it in the oven, any of these handles are going to get hot. But this handle being this short, it fits in the oven better. It doesn't have a great big handle on this side either. And that I really, really like if I'm cooking a meal where I know I'm going to be taking this pan from the stovetop to the oven. It also has a pretty interesting surface. So this is machined in a circular pattern, and it reminds me kind of a brake disc. It's got lines in it, and those lines seem to hold seasoning very well. Now what I mean by that is this Stargazer pan is polished. So even though this pan seasons faster, it seems, if I'm cooking something acidic like tomatoes, the seasoning will lift off of this pan before it will lift off of this pan. You can see here the seasoning is building up in the middle first. At some point that'll reach the edges, but this pan seems to be taking longer to season, but it produces a harder, more durable seasoning, and I think it's due to that texture that they've put in the bottom. It does have a pour lip all the way around, however it doesn't work very well. When you pour, this will dribble down the edges. So good effort, but it needs to have some bigger lip of some sort in order to really accomplish that. Simply don't use it to pour things and you'll be happy. I mentioned before it's very, very lightweight. The walls, you can feel how thin the walls are. And while we're talking about the walls, a thing I don't like about this pan is you can't get the spatula in there to flip stuff. So if you're cooking potatoes or vegetables or things that you're just kind of gonna stir, great pan. If you wanna flip things like meat or fish, even a grilled cheese sandwich, it is hard to get the spatula in there. So I don't use this pan for those. It has a heat ring on the bottom. This is called a couple of different things. I'm going to call it a heat ring. You know, I don't really have a purpose for that. If you've done any research, you know that this heat ring is designed to fit in the groove of an old wood burning stove. The stove had a heat disc, and there was a little space in between the heat disc and the stovetop surface that this ring would catch in and hold the pan centered. I don't have a use for that. I use a glass top. The other feature that this was for is if the pan wasn't perfectly flat, the manufacturer could easily just grind down this ring to make it sit flat, as opposed to grinding the whole surface to get it flat. So for whatever reason, the Field brothers included this. It looks nice. It's reminiscent of vintage cast iron. However, outside of that, it's just really, I don't have a need for it. You can see how I can hold this pan straight out. It's very lightweight. That is one of the best features. If you have a problem with heavy arthritis or something, this pan is the lightest weight cast iron pan I have ever used. Okay, so that pretty much finishes up the field skillet. Some things I like the most about it is the short handle for fitting it in the oven, the weight, and the things I like the least about it. Oh, and the seasoning, that's a plus. The things I like the least about it is I can't get a spatula in there very easily. Okay, next up is the Stargazer skillet. This is another 10.5-inch skillet, same size. It is significantly heavier. It's very thick-walled, very thick bottom. It has kind of a polished surface, and the best way I can explain the surface is it's like a stainless steel all-clad pan. It even seasons like a stainless steel pan in this brown color if you've ever seasoned stainless steel. It produces a very slick surface. I've never had a problem with sticking. However, like I mentioned, if you cook acidic food in it, it will lift the seasoning off faster than these other pans will. Again, it seasons very quickly, so re-seasoning the pan goes pretty smoothly, but that is something to consider. The pour spout that's been designed actually works. It has a far enough lip that hangs over, so if you're pouring juices out, it doesn't drip, which for a glass top especially is really great because then you don't end up with that oil burning down the side. Also, speaking of pouring, this radius right here fits a spoon almost perfectly. So if you're cooking a steak and you want to ladle the juices up onto the steak, this pan is fantastic for that because the spoon just fits perfectly right in the radius between the wall and the bottom. It has a really beefy handle to hold on to if you're cooking something really heavy. The outside surface is shockingly smooth for a cast. It's really, really nice. They've got their logo and name back here, 10.5 inch, again made in America, and I've been super happy with it. The handle stays cool thanks to this fork, and this design here, it's nice. I mean, it's fine. The pan is really too heavy for me to really hold right out there, so I either use two hands, but the handle is does what it's supposed to do. It stays cool to the touch. So that's the Stargazer. And I think this was about $80. This was probably $60 or $70. But these two are a great pair because they serve two different functions in the kitchen, and I use them all the time. This pan is probably my favorite out of all of these pans. If you're cooking a single grilled cheese or an egg or a single serving of maybe some peppers and onions, if you're outside doing a steak and you need a side pan, this just serves so many purposes. The handle design absolutely keeps the handle cool. Of course, if you stick it in the oven, all of these handles are going to get hot, but this design, you can cook with this for an extended period of time and the handle will stay cool. It has a very, very smooth exterior surface, much like the inside of, it's very similar to vintage cast iron. The inside is really interesting. So the walls up here are slightly rougher than the bottom, but the bottom is silky, silky smooth. I wish that you could feel it. It's very, very smooth, but yet it's cast. So it's almost like they sanded it maybe. Not sure what they did, but it holds plenty of seasoning very well. You can see how black these pans are. It never sticks. The pan is just fantastic. It is one of my favorite. If I had to only have one pan, it might be this one, although the size is really just too small for, if you're cooking for, you know, a family, it's really too small. But I really love this pan. So that's the SOLIDTEKNICS, made in Australia, 8-inch cast iron pan. And here's their 11-inch. I think it's their 11-inch. I'd have to check out their website to be sure. It has the same cool touch handle. This fork helps keep it cool. It's significantly heavier though. It has a raised heat disc here on the bottom, and this pan heats the most even out of all these pans. Obviously, it's a concentrated area. It also has the most radiused sides, so it's almost like a little wok. That's the best way to think of it. If you're cooking vegetables or really anything, I mean, if you want to make a cast iron cornbread, this would be a really cool pan to do that in. You can really get a spatula in there, no problem. It's great for stirring or mixing or tossing. It's a really, really great design. And again, it has that same super smooth bottom. Sides are a little bit thicker. It's heavy, but the Stargazer is actually heavier. At least it feels heavier. Again, both of these pans have longer handles. This has the longest handle out of all of them, most likely to keep it cool. The only time that's a pain is when you try to put it in the oven. If this pan doesn't go in the oven, then this handle is much appreciated because it does stay super cool. So that is the SOLIDTEKNICS, Stargazer, and Field Company skillets. Thanks for watching this video. I hope this was a good representation of each pan. And if you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the notes. Please subscribe to my channel. I plan on doing a carbon steel comparison in the coming weeks, and that video will include a couple pans by SOLIDTEKNICS. It'll include some Blue Iron, Christ Ironworks, and Blanc Creatives. So I think I've got 4, maybe 5 manufacturers to compare with the carbon steel. I have more carbon steel pans than I do cast iron. I use them the most, and I'm looking forward to doing that video. So stay tuned and subscribe so you'll know when I post the next video. Thanks for watching.